fiberglass. I always use it. Some guys hate it. I use it. I never have any callbacks or cracks, so it's a good product. Just use name brand stuff. All right, now we're ready to first coat. All right, let's first coat it. Heavy first coat mud. See how heavy it is. Striking your tape. Pushing the mud. All right. Coat it. Tight here, so I'm using a 6. Alright. I'm going to use all the mud on the pan. Use it up. Try to use all my mud in my pan. Get all the mud on the pan on the patch if possible. The angle I'm going to use my 6. On each side of the angles. So there ain't a bunch of mud built up in there. Extra mud, throw in the patch. Alright. Mud there, no problem. Got my extra mud here. I'm going to throw it on my wall patch since it's kind of deep. Go a little bit in this angle area since it's kind of deep here against the angle. Draw it down. Alright, that's a good first coat. Let it dry. This is a quick set mud, so it's going to start setting up quickly. If you use a joint compound, you're going to have to let the joint compound dry overnight. You should be using a joint compound if you never mudded before. This is a quick set mud, so it's a stronger material. It sets up. This that I'm using is going to set up in about 5 minutes. It gives me enough time to get the mud on, get my tools cleaned up, come back in here, and they'll be set up. But let's let this set up. Next step, we're going to slick it out with the second coat. All right. Starting to set up. 6-inch knife, sponge, slick out technique. Just need a damp sponge, not a soaking wet sponge. I like to run it in the angle first. Edge. Now I'm going to slick out. Taking off the extra material. Alright. edge again. Most important part, feathering your edge. Alright, ready for second coat. Okay, second coat. Second coat's a little thinner than first coat. Every coat you do has to be thinner than the prior coat, just a tad bit thinner. Same thing like the first coat, just coat over everything. First coat fills, second coat makes it perfect. The third coat will make it perfect. But the first coat is your fill coat. Your second coat just does anything that your first coat missed. If you do a good enough first coat, your second coat's just a tight skim coat. Same thing here. I'm just going to put my mud on the patch. Use up all the mud in my pan. Just so I know I have enough mud here. All the mud's out of my pan. So when I take the mud off here, feather the edge, I can take the extra mud and put it on the deep patch. Here. Notice how I'm pushing the knife down. I'm not standing it up. I'm putting it down like this to coat. I'm steering the knife towards the direction I'm going. The angle here, pull it tight. I don't want a bunch of mud built up in the angle. See, now I got extra mud here. Now I can finish it through on this patch. Scrape the pan. You don't want to waste material since you paid for all this mud. You want to mix up just enough to use it. I don't want to waste materials. It's fine if you're doing one job and you waste materials, but if you waste materials every day it adds up. Nothing's worse than buying stuff over and over just because you want to be wasteful. Move that edge, face the angle, a little deep here, put a little more mud on. We're just skimming it out, pushing down, coating it out, feather the edge. Anything don't look good, just put more mud on it. It's okay, you can go over it. Just build it up kind of heavy here in the deep spot. Angle here, I don't like it, so I'm going to put a little bit of mud in the angle. Leave it kind of heavy, so when I slick it out, there'll be plenty of material to slick out with. Edge looks good. Feathered edge. Same thing there. Let the mud set up on here. In the meantime, clean up your tools. Don't let the mud dry in your pan and knife. It's no fun to scrape your pan and knife and ruin your tools with caked on mud, especially with hot mud. Wash your tools. Let this set up. Next up, slick it out again with the sponge. And then we're going to follow through with the texture. This is called a skip trowel. A lot of my videos show skip trowel texture. If you don't have a texture and you just want to leave it smooth, you would slick this out. If you use joint compound, you would sand it and then follow through with a tight third coat with an all-purpose joint compound. Nice tight joint compound coat. The mud, you thin it down like a heavy pancake batter consistency. Tight skim coat, and it'll be a perfectly smooth patch. But if this doesn't need that third coat, because I coat it pretty heavy, so I'm going to slick it out. If I slick it out the second coat and it still looks rough, then I can do a third coat. But if it looks perfect patch, then it's ready for texture. So let's let this set up, clean up my tools. I'm going to go mix some mud, some all-purpose joint compound. I'm going to thin it up, mix it up real good. I don't want no clumps in my mud, so I mix it up real thoroughly. Heavy pancake batter consistency. Let's let this patch dry. Starting to dry, same thing like first coat. Angle. Angle. taking off the extra mud here. That's why you don't want to put it too heavy. That's why we do tighter coats. You don't want to put on too heavy. You want a big hump on the wall. Alright, check your edges again. Most important is this edge. If that is bad texture, hit that. Angles, angles, detail. Alright, I'm going to let this patch set up for a couple more minutes. The patch here looks really good. If it was still bad shape, looked rough and deep, you'd have to do another coat over this. But since I slicked it out good, nice coat, it's ready. Texture it, texture it, texture it. Alright, let's let it fully dry. I want this texture nice and dry before my mud goes over it. It's still damp on the edges, so I want it to dry here on the edges really well since it's transitioning into gloss paint. It's going to take a little longer for the edges to dry. No hurry. Any imperfections you see, double check it. Different angles, different lighting changes stuff. So you're going to look at it different angles. She's ready. I'm going to let it dry, okay? And then I'm going to go get my mud and texture this out. I don't need much mud with the skip trowel, maybe less than a half a pan of mud. But she's ready. Alright. Thinned, creamy joint compound. Heavy pancake consistency. It's not like water, it still needs to stick to your knife, but it's thinned down. Every coat you do gets thinner and thinner. I'm using my 6-inch knife since it's a patchwork. I know a lot of guys use big knives for skip trowel, but I'm just skip troweling a 2x2, 2x3 patch. The skip trowel, I check it because some of them go different direction. This one goes up and down. This one looks like it's going sideways here, this way, so multi-directional skip trowel. Right now, if I had any imperfections, I can touch them up a little bit, do a tight skim, touch up spots, no problem, you can touch up before you texture. Just do a tight coat. If you put the touch up too heavy, you're going to have to let it dry before you texture over it. Skip trowel, I'm starting on the outside edge, helps get the pattern going. Slowly, look how I'm pushing the knife. The knife, I'm just gliding the knife over it, skipping, skip, 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 skip. Practice makes perfect on skip trowels. You just have to practice it to get your technique down. Sometimes the mud just has to be right. Perfect mud. Let's go ahead and get it all skipped out. Takes a little longer with a 6-inch knife, but you get a better match. The goal here is to match the texture, not just slop on the mud. Everybody wants to slop the mud on. There's actually an art to it, especially when you're texturing an existing texture matching. So just lightly put it on. I like to put all my skip trowel on before I trowel it down. You always have to trowel down skip trowel. I always take it up past my mud area, feather it out, gives it a nice transition. New into old texture, a good transition. Sometimes might as well just texture all the way to this next angle so the whole area is a new texture. No big deal. Blends in better this way. New texture. Our job is to match the texture, but nothing's better than original, right? So we're just going to cover up this extra 6 inches of ceiling here to the angle. No big deal. That way there's just one new line here, just one line. little skipped out. Some skips heavier than others. You can take your skip right off. Start over. Start over. No big deal. If you didn't like your skip trowel, you would just trowel this down, treat it like a tight skim coat. If you didn't like your design you did. That's why you want to take your time with it and use a smaller knife that you have control over. Control. Knife control. Knife control. A lot of these guys pick up these big knives, 12-inch, 14-inch, 16-inch knife, thinking they can do it, but they don't even know how to use a 6-inch knife. This is number one. Master this one, then you can move on to the bigger knives. A little extra busy, check the angle, everything looks good. A little more over here. More over there, a little more transition. These edges, I get rid of those edges. I don't want to start marks, they call it. Throw it down. I'm lightly going over it like a knockdown. Going over it, knocking it down, knocking it down. Knocking it down, knocking it down, knocking it down. Go the other direction to knock down. Go the other direction, other direction, other direction. Clean your knife, keep your knife clean. Other direction, other direction, other direction. Ceiling looks good. I might move the ladder and get this edge a little more, but now we're going to do our wall patch. I like to start on my edge out here. Helps me see their pattern versus my pattern, so I can work on getting the correct pattern right away. There we go. And then just continue on. Nice slow movements. I'm letting the knife do the work. I'm not pushing down. I'm not using any muscle. I'm just gliding the mud and it's skipping over the surface. Skip, 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 skip trowel. Skip, skip, skip. Slowly but surely. And I'm dipping into my pan. Some guys like to scoop. I've seen guys that do dip. Both ways work. You just got to find out what works. Look, I just have a little bit of mud on my knife. I'm not caking it on like that, putting it on. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Skip. Getting the angle. I'm not getting all the way in the angle. I want to stay out of the exact angle, so I'm down 1/8 of an inch or so. The angle's already perfect. I don't want to mess it up by dumping it full of mud. So I stay away from the angle, a good 1/8 of an inch or so. Skip, skip, skip. Takes longer with this 6-inch knife, but you get a good pattern, perfect pattern. You're trying to match texture. You're not trying to create your own here. Any light spots, fill in. Make sure your angle's good. Angle, angle, angle on the wall side. Took it down far enough. Alright, bring my knife. I'm knocking it down. I'm gliding over it. 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 Clean your knife. Some guys go the opposite direction. This kind of fills in some spots on patchwork. Push down a little more on the edge. It feathers it in. Just go over any spots. I'm just gliding over it. I'm not pushing down. Any mud movers, stuff like that. If you want to take it out further, go ahead, take it out further. Helps transition it into the existing. You can push down lighter here because you don't need much. Knock it down to feather it in. Feather it into your new patch. Feather it in. Nice patch. Detail looks good around the fan. Everything looks good. Double check your work. All looks good here. A little more in this angle here. A little more in this light spot here. I left the light spot here, so I'm going to put a little bit of skip trowel, make sure everything's knocked down. Everything looks good. I'm going to take my ladder, move it, get this edge a little more, but all this looks good. Perfect patch. Feather out the edge here, no big deal. Just a little bit of mud, doesn't need a lot. A little goes a long way. The outside edge, see how I'm getting the edge? The edge. Now there's not a sharp line there. It fades in, transitions. Then they sand it and it looks good. Any high or low areas, you just double check it. Now that you have a different point of view, you can see stuff. See stuff. Any goobers on your wall, you can clean them with a damp rag, clean rag. But yeah, that's it. Skip trowel patch, ready to go. Let this dry for 24 hours. Sand it with 150 grit sandpaper, primer, then paint. If you haven't done it already, subscribe. If you haven't done it already, like. And if you haven't done it already, comment on this video. And thanks for viewing.